if you look at an area where you've struggled, I think the question you got to ask yourself, I think the question I got to ask myself is, if it did work, why did it work? Did you have a guide? Was there a blueprint that you followed that worked? And if it didn't work, is it because you don't have a guide? Is it because you are using your own template? And if you are using a guide and it still didn't work, is have you done enough of the work and has it compounded? This is where it gets super challenging. The balance between letting the seed do what the seed is supposed to do and the difference between you actually using the wrong strategy. Maybe you're going north when you think you're going south. That is where mentorship comes into play.
Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Experiment Nation, your host, Ruben here. My goodness, it is currently last month of the year, and I want to just give some punchy motivation and give you a piece of advice that I'm doing. Honestly, a lot of this show is just sharing with you my insights, what's working, what's breaking, what's not working, what's really working. And I think it's personally such a good idea to create the space to reflect for the year, not waiting for the first, you've already lost momentum, but creating the space and asking a very simple question: what worked well for you and what didn't? And with that comes some data, and you can reflect on by looking on, okay, what worked well this year? And we start thinking about what worked well this year, we'll start to realize, can we do more of it? Because often it's the things that we stop doing that already works. We already have momentum, and then we see another object. We have the shiny object syndrome, and then we stop doing the thing. Now, the most challenging part in all this, and I recently heard a quote, I think Chris Williamson said this, and shout out to Chris Williamson, who's the Modern Wisdom podcast host. I love to share with folks who inspire me. He's certainly inspired me, has an amazing platform. And, you know, well, actually, I don't even know if it was on his platform. But one of the things that, I think Kevin Hart actually even said this as well. Maybe that's where I got it from, because I'm always getting insights and inspiration. It's like, he said the hardest thing is doing something that takes a lot of effort and not seeing results and waking up the next day and doing it. And I think most people don't have that endurance pack, that endurance battery pack that you need. Now, the reason why it gets very challenging is you have to know and you have to have belief. And this is why I always talk about that something is going to work. And where do you get that belief? You get it from someone who's already done the thing. So if it's working from them, you perhaps need to become the person that it's going to work for. But when you stop, you're not doing what the bamboo does. Bamboo is a tree that has to have very deep roots, and it takes, I was just reading about this, 1 to 2 years before it starts to shoot up and sprout. And sometimes what we do is we don't give the time for the foundation to fertilize, and then let alone plant the seed and then water it every day, which is a big thing for me, I think, this year. Especially as I've seen things I committed to for a long time that took nearly the entire year to do, and now just getting the results, and even then not being 100% complete. If life were in the 1 year sprints, then you'd be like, oh, 1 year I'll do this 1 year, but sometimes it even takes longer than that. And you have to have that patience. But with that said, you can also take some time to look at areas where, I think the goal of this is creating space to reflect. If you look at an area where you've struggled, I think the question you gotta ask yourself, I think the question I gotta ask myself, right? And this is inclusive of myself. This is not me speaking to you. This is me reflecting with you. Is what if it did work? Why did it work? Did you have a guide? Was there a blueprint that you followed that worked? And if it didn't work, is it because you don't have a guide? Is it because you are using your own template? And if you are using a guide and it still didn't work, is have you done enough of the work and has it compounded? Um, and I think that's the direction where if you feel like you're not getting a result to this, there's also the challenge of, and this is where it gets super, super challenging, the balance between letting the seed do what the seed is supposed to do and the difference between you actually using the wrong strategy. Maybe you're going north when you think you're going south. That is where, again, mentorship comes into play. And if you look at your mentor, if you look at someone that you admire, if you look at them and ask them, hey, am I on the right path? And they tell you, yes, you are, then keep going. Now, why should you trust a mentor? They probably have a result that you're trying to get. And if they're telling you that I've been down this path, I've been around the corner in this specific area in your season of your life, and you should keep going, that's where you borrow the faith from. That's where you borrow the belief system from. That's where you borrow your battery pack from. Now, the challenge is there's so many areas in your life where you probably don't have a mentor, and this is including myself. Like, there's personally, I'm constantly, there's a lot of mentors that I have and guides and consultants that I pay, but there's some areas where I could look at in my life, I'm like, why didn't I get the result? It's because you don't have that right person in your corner, or at least you I focus on a specific area and got great results, but then took away from that, or didn't pay as much attention, or didn't even maybe even follow exactly what the guy told me to follow. That's another thing, right? It's one thing the guy tells you to do the thing, and now are you going to do the thing? Are you going to believe the thing? Are you going to do that gratitude morning journal list? Are you going to do the little things that matter that you think, does that really matter for me to write down my goals every day? Yes. Right? Does it really matter for me to make those small tweaks that I heard in the mastermind calls several times, but I haven't gotten to it? Is it really that big of a deal? Yes. Is it really true that I do this every day and I will get a result? Yes. Don't skip the days. Did your mentor skip the days? Maybe they did. Maybe they're not perfect. So follow that path that they're telling you that work for them, that will also work for you. Now, there's another caveat to that, because if you have maybe a virtual mentor or someone that you're not very close to and you can't get the latest and greatest data, you might be operating on an old blueprint, an old model. Especially with technology these days, it's really important for you to have the latest and greatest software update, right? The latest and greatest what worked back 10 years ago might not work today, or there might be better ways to get around it. I think one of the best questions you can ask is, with the circumstances of how things are today in the situation that I'm in, what steps would you take in my position, mentor? Because the steps that they took may have gotten them to where they are with different circumstances. So, such a good reflection point. One of the big hacks that I actually think is a huge underutilized tool, and this is not in replacement of a real-time mentor, just because I think you get the emotions, you get the community usually, but it's to definitely leverage these new AI tools and give as much information as you need. One of the things that I recently did, because I'm looking to work on a deal, is I put in a very detailed paragraph. This takes time, this takes diligence, this is not flying by the seat of your pants. I put very concrete. I said, act as a financial advisor, act as a real estate consultant, act as a, what else did I had one more? A lending officer, like specialist. And I said, this is my current scenario, right? This is where I'm at financially. These are where my assets are. This is the asset that I'm working on. This is how much equity is in the property. This is how much I'm trying to get out. This is how much I'm trying to do. These are my goals. This is my exit strategy. I think I mentioned this already. This is my financial current position as of today. This is where I'm trying to go. These are the options that I'm considering. Based on these options that I'm considering, are there any other options that I ought to include. So I put that together in a document. I went to Chat GPT and I said, act as a real estate consultant, act as a lending specialist, act as a financial advisor. And then I did control paste. And I said, the questions, which option is the best essentially, or which is the best option based on my circumstance. Now, the quality, I always say this, the quality of answers that you get will be derived from the quality of questions that you ask. Ask and you shall receive, but ask with diligence, ask with detail. Create the space to reflect on those questions, create this space to reflect on your situation, and then put it into a tool like an AI tool, and you will get back some of the best advice you ever given. I actually believe you can do this in a lot of areas in your life, right? Whether it's health, wealth, love, and happiness. I would be careful, like don't self-diagnose yourself, right, with health. I think you should definitely still be seeing professionals, and this is why I'm not saying in lieu of, aka instead of, I'm saying in addition to. Um, there's so many great tools out there, and I would just really encourage you to put in as much detail into the tool to get back guidance. I think with all this information, with all this content, with all this media, there is in sometimes a freezing occurs because you're listening to a lot of different advice that all works from different people. And this is why I would actually highly recommend you to pick just a few people, if not one, that you want to exchange places with. Because I literally heard this on a mastermind call. I was like, I'm hearing a lot of different things that have worked for a lot of people, and therefore I'm confused. This was a question from a mastermind member, and I was like, that's very interesting. Of course you are confused. You're listening to too many voices. And by the way, they can all work, but you can't do all of them at once. So that's the beauty of it. And I know I'm hearing it now as I'm working with some business partners on a few things. We're going through ideation, and the truth is, one of my biggest takeaways is you just got to make a decision. um but the decision you must make must align with the person you would, when I say exchange places with, it's, you're your own person, but I'm saying, do you want the results that that person has? Do you want the lifestyle that they have? Do you want the car that they drive? Do you want the house that they have? Do you want their day to day? Do you want the problems that they face? Let me say that one more time. Do you want to deal with the problems that they face? Let me say that one more time. Do you want to deal with the problems that they face? The reason why that's important too is we always think about the other side, but every area has its own challenges, right? This is why the grass is always greener. Sometimes you might be running away from a problem that exists everywhere, right? Different depending on what time of business that you're in. What is the problem that you want to be able to deal with? Because you're going to deal with them. What are the challenges that you're going to want to deal with? Because you're going to deal with them. You're going to have to fire the person. You're going to have a difficult conversation with a person. You're going to have to make an executive decision. You're going to have to make these decisions along the way, because every business or every situation has that. You got to make a decision. Now, will you make the right decision? And that's why it's really important to create the space to reflect. Experiment Nation, you've heard me talk about how multiple investors across the nation are landing these lucrative midterm rental insurance contracts by making these small tweaks on the branding and marketing side. Especially if you're an existing short-term rental operator, there is a quick and easy shift that you can make with the ride guide in place. And because we've launched a 2-day boot camp that not everyone could attend in real time, I've put together a recording where you can get all the materials and all the guides to focus on rebranding either your short-term rental business or your current midterm rental business, so that you can actually have the insurance companies reach out to you. And then day 2 is if you want to actually play offense, how you can reach out to them by listing on the right platforms, etc. If you're looking to get this MTR bootcamp so that you can start optimizing and you can start receiving these lucrative contracts that again provide less headaches, less turnovers, unlike the Airbnb space, you can start receiving inquiries today by having the right guide in place. So please go to Experiment realestate.com/NPR bootcamp, or click the link in the bio to make sure you get your hands on the midterm rental insurance bootcamp to fast track your way into landing these lucrative insurance contracts the exact same ways multiple investors have taken advantage of this unknown and untapped niche within the midterm rental umbrella. Some of my reflection points and ours, let's say ours is my wife and I were partners, co-founders of Invested Escapes. We always think about, and we're gonna do more of this. We actually discussed. We did one. Actually had an unplug weekend like 2-3 weeks back. Where we went to Maine, a cliff house, amazing spot. And we just unplugged, no technology allowed. We did journal. We did reflect. We periodically do this, and it's just great to get in alignment with your partner if you haven't, because it gets your partner or your partners or even yourself just self journaling and say, okay, where are we going? I literally asked this question to gosh I asked not gonna put the person on blast, but this was going to the gym and I was talking to this student on the front desk, and I just asked her. I said, hey, what do you want? She couldn't answer it. And this is senior. Now, I'm not saying you should have anything figured out at all. As a matter of fact, I'm still figuring things out. But you should take the time to figure out what it is that you want. That is very important. Because if you don't know what you want, you're going to get pulled in somebody else's want. There's a lot of people who want things out there, and you'll just get pulled into their plan. So it's very important that you zoom back out and say, what do I want? What's important for me? And this episode is just as important for me to listen to and re-listen to. This is me sharing insights with you, not to you. Big insights. What do I want? And the beautiful thing is that will change over time. That's why it's important that you re-ask and reframe the question. What is important to me? I'm starting to realize there's some things that I thought were important that are really not that important. And then I started to realize there are some things that are continuously important to me, and I'm still optimizing for those things. And I'm just a baby. We're just getting warmed up. We are just getting warmed up, y'all. Wherever you are listening in your life. I recently, I think I might have saved this. Ooh, hopefully I can pull it up. Yeah, we're just getting warmed up. And for those who are feeling like, and I'm gonna hopefully be able to pull this up on time, and I think I have it here. For those who are feeling, a little bit behind or anything of that nature, listen to this. If you're in your 20s or 30s and you feel behind, just remember this, right? The world's wealthiest 100 people made their first million at 37. The average millionaire is 57. The average billionaire is 67. You're not behind. You're just getting warmed up, right? So I think it's important for us to put things into perspective. I think money is a good mark, but I think, I just posted this on my social. The good life for me is health, wealth, love, happiness, and peace of mind. And so it's important that you go back to those core values and think about, did I track towards those things this year? And out of those pillars, which one did we make the most progress in? And if so, and as I'm literally saying this, I'm just rethinking it as well, because I was just journaling right before this. And in those buckets of pillars, if you did have a boost, what worked? And then if it did work, are you using a template or a guide? And what's the if you're using a template or guide, are you following their blueprint? And if you are following the blueprint, it's important for you to think it through of what's really working. All right. So with that said, some reflection points for me this year. Appreciation versus cash flow. This was a big one in decisions that we're making. Even I was just talking with Celine about this. My wife Celine, she is my partner, and she leads operations, but we're always making decisions together. And we were just talking about, like, there was a co-host deal we turned down. It's not a good fit. And I think being able to say no. There's another management deal which we're probably going to turn down. As opportunities come, it's just as important to be able to say no, because you know and you're rooted into the direction that you're going. There's another, yeah, actually, being able to say no quickly means you're very well rooted with your where you are and where you want to go. I think that's just as important. If an opportunity comes to you and you're kind of like unsure, then I'm not saying that I think what I am saying is go back to the questions, like where are we going, and does it align? Does it bring us closer? Or does it deter us from that goal? So appreciation versus cash flow was a big one this year. As we got into a new market that appreciates higher. Compared to other properties, higher buy point. We recently expanded here in the Cape, and on the Cape, I should say, here in Massachusetts, and the projects we're working on, the next properties, balancing that portfolio between the Georgia portfolio and now the Massachusetts, which is a new turf for us. But we saw some of the highest months of revenue. And at the same time, uh e- just a complete different avatar. Almost like almost zero headaches, but also it has to do with the kind of asset that we bought. um so it's very interesting. I think having that conversation, thinking, okay, I think Thatch recently said that, I think is I'm gonna butcher his name, but um I think I'm actually reposted this. And what did he say? Oh, there you go. So it's I don't know if you know who Tatch Nguyen is. He's a real estate investor and developer, 30 plus years. Huge social media platform. Tatch is what he goes by. Was talking, there's a lot of different strategies, and like a lot of us talk about cash flow all the time, which is good because we're trying to plan an exit, or at least from our 9 to 5s, etc. But a lot of what he was saying is cash flow is good, but appreciation builds wealth, right? He's like, he couldn't have saved them the hundreds of millions that he's made, if that. Yeah, actually, it was that. Um, by just saving the cash flow that he's made. It's from the appreciation. It's by it's by investing in good neighborhoods, not lowest hanging fruit where you can, get where you fit in. Understand that, rightfully so. But when you get to a point where maybe you're in a position to either continue to buy more assets in those areas, or hold on for a second and be a sniper and go bigger, that can have a huge trajectory. As a matter of fact, shout out to Michael Alfonte, right? It's my buddy. He goes for these mega Airbnb homes, and he was saying this year. That was a big reflection point. He's like, I'm a sniper. I'm not buying every deal that comes to me. I'm not even trying to buy that many deals, right? He's buying mega deals. Like when he's buying, he's going big. And his rehab budget is big. But guess what? So is his appreciation. He just refinanced on a deal that we pulled out 2 million on a single family home. Yeah, mind you, he also put in like, don't quote me on this, like $700,000 in, I think, all in or something like that, right? But you go big, you win big, you appreciates higher. And it's just something to think about. This is definitely the conversation that is way top of mind here, as we get these opportunities, these subject to opportunities come our way now, because we're deep rooted into community. Shout out to the community. If you got a deal, definitely send it my way, whether it's in Georgia, Massachusetts here, especially in Cape Cod, boutique hotel, whatever it is you got going on, send it my way. Because we're actively buying, but I think we're also asking ourselves the question, like, what is this? Is this going to help us right now? Does this really help? And shout out to Celine, because she's the one who's actually keeping me in line. Because every time I see a deal, I start to salivate, and then I have to take a step back to be like, hey, maybe this is not. Yeah, maybe I'm jumping the gun here. So have a partner that will hold you accountable. What are your next 5 moves? I have my next 5 moves right here. Right? Um, next 5 moves right here, right in front of me, right? What is your sweet escape? What is your next 5 moves? Read the book by Patrick Bet David. What are your next 5 moves? Um, And don't always tell everybody what your next 5 moves are. That's why I'm not sharing mine. But that's just personal, right? Be clear on your next 5 moves, right? Be clear on your next 5 moves, and always go back to this. Does that help me towards my next 5 moves? Your day should be driven by those next 5 moves. My day is driven by those next 5 moves. Um, this is part of my next 5 moves. I want to create as much content and deliver it to you guys to give you as much value as possible, because it comes full circle. You help as many people get what they want, you can have whatever you want. And it's definitely been a full year of gratitude. We just had Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving if you're here in the US. But I'm very grateful if you're listening to my voice right now, because I know that you could be anywhere in the world, but you're listening to this with me. And I would encourage you to definitely, as we transition into the new year, think about what worked, think about what didn't work. Did you have a guide? Do you need a guide in that area? And if you have a guide, are you applying what they're telling you to do? And do you need to do more of it or less of it? Sometimes also you might need a new guide. Um, if that guide no longer aligns with where you want to go, with what you want. What do I want? Health, wealth, love, happiness, and peace of mind. And what are your next 5 moves? I know mine. Do you? Make sure it aligns with your purpose. Make sure you create the space to reflect, because most people, and this is why a lot of people talk about the 9 to 5, is, you know, I think it could be a great tool that you can leverage. I used it to leverage into all the assets we've built. But what it can do is drain you and not give you the time and space to think, but instead just be stuck into the work. And the work, too much work, without being very strategic and creative with the mindset of where we're actually going, can just lead to you just being a cog in the wheel, pushing through. The one thing I'm realizing, one of my favorite books this year, Die with Zero, Bill Perkins, is we don't know how long we got, but we sure know that we have the chance and the opportunity to make the best of the time that we have here, create memory dividends. And one of my favorite quotes, not borrowing from our poorer self, but borrowing from our richer self, and not robbing ourselves of opportunities that we can truly enjoy because we're just postponing the the experience or living. Don't postpone living, and don't, I would say, borrow from your richer self. If you're going in the right direction, you know you're going to be heading in the right direction. So make sure you don't rob yourself of opportunities and experiences today. I'm a big believer of that, because at the end of the day, we don't know when we're due. So we got to make the best of it every day. Maximize. Don't let anything wait for tomorrow. Do it today. Create the space today to reflect, to be aligned with where you're going. Make sure you enjoy the journey, because that's where half of the new enjoyment comes from. All these milestones and goals are in the future, but the present is today. That's why it's called the present. So with that said, create the space that you need in your life to reflect, so that you can put your best foot forward going into 2025. My job is done. Yours has just begun. Also, if you're looking for a guide in the midterm rental insurance space, it's a space that has truly helped us change the game from having the shiny object syndrome, trying to go into other markets where people were making more than us. We found a way to do it with what we had. We don't have luxury properties by any means. We have clean, affordable homes, and we work with temporary housing companies and insurance housing and insurance companies to keep our properties fully booked and highly profitable by doing the business to business model. So do not sleep on that, and make sure that if you're looking for a guide, we have a very special, depending on the time when you're listening to this, the MTR Accelerator did launch this year, this quarter, and it is your opportunity to grab your hands and join a community where investors are also maximizing the best that they can and will get in, by adding the midterm rental insurance strategy to their existing short-term rental operation. If you're already an Airbnb host, you are already 10 steps ahead of the way, and you are just a few bookings away from getting, again, high occupancy and profitability to serve families. So make sure you go on experimentrealestate.com/accelerator and make sure that you either sign up for the mastermind or sign up for the course that we have there. It is high touch, and most importantly, we get people results. So with that said, stay tuned, create that space, and let's get after it, y'all. We're just getting warmed up. Let's build. Experimentation. I believe there are two critical components that will help you achieve your goals very quickly and succeed. Number one, it's information like this that you received on a show, in an episode, and content that you can find on my YouTube channel or anybody's channel. And then there's a community. And the way we've been able to expedite our process, the way people in our community, people that we consult, mastermind members, whoever, they get the information on an episode like this, but then they also have the support, whether it's me guiding them or being guided through a community. There is an opportunity for you listening to be able to expedite your process or even expedite your results that you're seeking by being in part of the community. If that is what you're interested in, we at Experiment Nation happen to have a community devoted to helping maximize your occupancy and your profitability altogether, regardless of which market that you are in. And for that reason, you have an opportunity where you can go to experimentrealestate.com/submit if you're looking to work in an environment that can help you prosper faster. Call out any areas that you might not be familiar in, especially the blind spots. That's where a guide comes in hand, and I would be a pleasure and honor to be your guide. But in order to make sure you're a good fit, make sure you go to experimentrealestate.com/submit so that my team can go ahead and take it and see if you're a good fit to join the mastermind and the multiple programs that we have. In addition to that, I'm also now a YouTube partner, which means that I want to give you more access to information, more access to Q&As, more access to the questions that actually come out of our mastermind that help people expedite the process. We've seen people get anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 to even $7,000 a month net on just one door by applying the strategies that we use by working with corporations and furnished accommodation in a very strategic way. So if you're interested, make sure you also subscribe, because I'm going to have different tiers that's on YouTube now that we've become YouTube partner, to continue to be the bridge to your success in your lab. And your lab means your life, your goals, or wherever you're trying to head. So make sure you also hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/real estate experiment. We'll be there. You can also look us up at Midterm Rental Insurance Experiment. We will be there. Make sure you hit the subscribe, because that's when you'll know the tiers that are available to you that make sense for you, your marketplace, for your results. Remember, you're only one experiment away. Let's build.